Hi, hello. Welcome to our episode of Isaiah's Newsstand. It's your host, Isaiah Edwards. The date is March the 26th, 2024. Hopefully, this episode finds you well, in good spirits, and high hopes. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. Tuesday was a little bit busier on the work end, but yeah, at the same time, I say that because it was kind of busier up front. But then next thing I know, I'm back in maintenance, talking up with all the old heads. We actually talked about a decent amount of news, some of which I'm going to wind up actually covering today. So that was nice. It's nice when I'm working while I'm working, because truthfully, I love this. I love doing my little podcast. I know I'm not great at it or whatever. I'm amateur hour, but I do love doing this shit. I'll say it. I'll be real with you. But anyway, let's see. Enough about that part of my day. Let's talk about the food. Yesterday I had my little Mexican beef and rice bowl. It was yummy as usual. I will say I made a couple of the fry bread tacos and they were good. I will say like I was having like a manic moment or something. I was a little distracted and I left them in the fryer too long and they like had like this almost like hard shell to them. But kind of worked like a tostada kind of vibe. So it was yummy. It was great. No complaints. But yeah, that's the food corner. So you're caught up with me. We're on the road. So yeah, let's go ahead and talk about news. I feel like we got some like big stuff on the docket. I mean, I feel like I tackle some pretty heavy issues. I try to do my best. But yeah, this one's gonna be over the river and through the woods, if you will. That pun doesn't have much merit. I'm just saying things. I'm just ranting. Playing for time, baby. Anyway, let me do the startup. Okie dokie, Smokey. All right, let's get into it. From USA Today, Baltimore's Key Bridge collapses after ship strike. Construction crew missing. Live updates. So, I mean, there's a lot here. Probably going to be shifting into riff mode a little bit, but we'll do whatever we can to kind of, get the broad strokes at least. A massive search effort stretched into Tuesday afternoon for six construction workers who were on the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore when it was struck by a cargo ship and collapsed into the frigid Patapsco River, shutting down a critical artery for East Coast shipping. Around 1:30 a.m., a Singapore-flagged vessel named Dolly struck the Key Bridge as it was leaving the port of Baltimore, causing the span to collapse in seconds. Officials said the crew warned of a power issue and sent out a mayday before the collision. Footage of the incident shows the cargo ship smash into one of the columns before the bridge snapped, hit the water, and partially fell on the ship, where a burst of flames and smoke could be seen rising into the night sky. Several vehicles were on the bridge at the time of the impact and plunged into the river, which was measured Tuesday at 48 degrees, which is cold enough to cause hypothermia. There were multiple contractors on the bridge who were repairing potholes. Maryland Transportation Secretary Paul Weidfeld said, "So far, two people have been rescued. One was unharmed, and the other remains in very serious condition." Let's see here. Also, in terms of the ship's crew, they seem to be all right. I don't think anyone was harmed there, which is a miracle in and of itself. But I think from what I've heard, they lost power, and the ship is more or less drifting towards this pillar, and then they kind of get power back, but it's just too late. It's minutes before it hits, and they just can't correct, and boom, and it hits. And there are people who were working, on the potholes. I believe that there was someone who was actually driving, like a semi truck or something like that, that fell into the river. I don't know if that was one of the people recovered. Let me read a little bit from the developments part. The University of Maryland's Maryland Medical Center's Trauma Center treated one patient from the collapse who has been discharged. Michael Schwartzberg, the medical center's spokesperson, said in an email. Schwartzberg declined to say more about the person's injuries, citing privacy concerns. So there's that. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be more to add to this story. I literally woke up and this had happened overnight, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so scary. And, I mean, I personally, in my life, in my commute, I don't cross too many bridges. But, I think most people have that little thought. Also, I guess to add a little bit of levity, do you do the thing where you make a wish? You hold your breath and make a wish? I do that more times than I don't do that, I think. Because more times than not, if I'm on a little bridge, I can hold my breath that long. Why not? I'm a little superstitious. Let's roll the dice. But yeah, I mean, I have the other thought of like, oh my God, what if I this just becomes like a whole Golden State Bridge situation and I just fall on my death here. So seeing this happen is, definitely like, oh my gosh, scary. But it did seem overall, because we have talked before in the past about really bad bridges, especially in the local sense. At least I think I've covered that on the podcast. Whatever, probably did. Where it's like, oh my gosh, this bridge is so fucked up. It's dilapidated. Why haven't we had good inspections? It seems from the inspections done on the Key Bridge, Frank Scott Key Bridge, they were overall good. They said they could do more bank repairs. There was minor bank repairs they needed to do. So there's this or that, but I mean, at the end of the day, you got rammed by a whole ass fucking cargo ship. So, it just kind of is what it is. Hopefully this is something, excuse me, that, I don't even know. Obviously it's an indefinite closure, but this is definitely a vital, thoroughfare. One, via, transit, over the water, but then also the port is closed indefinitely, there's literally, cars and shit and the whole bridge in the water. So, there's that to deal with. So, I mean, it's a lot to unpack, but, these disasters happen and, obviously I gotta be here to cover them. So there's that bit of coverage. We'll do that. Let's zigzag. Let's do some international news. Let's go to Associated Press. UK court says Assange can't be extradited on espionage charges until US rules out death penalty. A British court ruled Tuesday that Julian Assange can't be extradited to the United States on espionage charges unless the US authorities guarantee he won't get the death penalty, giving the WikiLeaks founder a partial victory in his long legal battle over the site's publication of classified American documents. Two high court judges said they would grant Assange a new appeal unless U.S. authorities give further assurances within 3 weeks about what will happen to him. The ruling means the legal saga, which has dragged on for more than a decade, will continue, and Assange will remain inside London's high-security Belmarsh prison, where he has spent the last 5 years. Let's see. I mean, we've covered a bit of Julian Assange before. I feel like I never give him the proper, due or coverage. I'm sure there's definitely some other commentators and people out there that could definitely do you better. But hey, you got me. We're here for this. That being said, I think this is a good thing, but it might just be a temporary thing. The U.S. has been kind of constantly clamoring oh, no, of course we're not going to give him the death penalty, even though he's Australian and we haven't actually legally fleshed out those rights. We're just kind of saying it with our mouths. But of course. And now Assange is also his legal team, himself, his wife are worried. It's hey, you guys are literally going to, try to kidnap him or kill him. Technically, yes, we're worried about the legal shit, but we're also worried about that. And the judges have said, no, we're not really worried about that. We don't know if we can actually prove that. I know I'm kind of getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Let's see here. The ruling follows a 2-day hearing in the High Court in February where Assange's lawyer, Edward Fitzgerald, said the American authorities were seeking to punish him for WikiLeaks exposure of criminality on the part of the U.S. government on an unprecedented scale, including torture and killings. Like I said, there's the whole background. I know it's like it'd be better to kind of give you that, but like it's a whole lot, and we'd be here all night if we did that. Let me see here. Yeah, Assange, 52 years old, a computer expert, has been indicted in the U.S. on charges over WikiLeaks publication in 2010 of hundreds of thousands of classified documents. Assange faces 17 counts under the Espionage Act and 1 charge of computer misuse. If convicted, his lawyers say he could receive a prison term of up to 175 years, though the authorities have said any sentence is likely to be much lower. But that's, once again, mouth movements. That's not actually anything in writing. You don't know that. You could still get put in prison for a very long time. Not to mention, this man has been on the run since like fucking 2010. Like, he has been in the wind. Let me see here. I do want to read this because this always comes up when you wind up reading about Assange and, the whole fucking saga of it all. Assange's legal troubles began in 2010 when he was arrested in London at the request of Sweden, which wanted to question him about allegations of rape and sexual assault made by 2 women. And in 2012, Assange jumped bail and sought refuge inside of the Ecuadorian embassy. Let's see here. The relationship between Assange and his host eventually soured, and he was evicted from the embassy in 2019. British police immediately arrested and imprisoned him for breaching bail in 2012. Sweden dropped the sex crimes investigations in November 2019 because so much time elapsed. So I feel like that's an important thing to mention. I feel like in the past I hadn't mentioned that. That being said, it doesn't mean that, the sex crimes don't, they aren't real or they're made up. I know, some people are like, no, that was a trumped up thing. It's conspiratorial, whatever. But I know that on paper, it's like, well, so much time has passed and we believe the statements of the women, but we just don't have any of the other evidence. And we don't feel like that is enough to hold it. So, you kind of got to take that for what it is. I also feel like the other important thing is too, that these things are separate. Like, at the end of the day, is it worth, like, putting Assange through all of this because he, told on the goddamn government? And I do think his fears of being kidnapped or being killed by the government are real and valid, mainly because the government in and of itself has talked about it and kind of got caught with their hand in the cookie jar, which I want to kind of pull up on a side article I have here from The Guardian. CIA officials under Trump discussed assassinating Julian Assange. Senior CIA officials during the Trump administration discussed abducting and even assassinating WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, according to a U.S. report citing former officials. The discussions on kidnapping or killing Assange took place in 2019, Yahoo News reported, when the fugitive Australian activist was entering his 5th year sheltering in the Ecuadorian embassy. The CIA director, Mike Pompeo, and his top officials were furious about the WikiLeaks publication of Vault 7, a set of CIA hacking tools, a breach which the agency deemed to be the biggest data loss in its history. So, I mean, it's definitely been on the table in America of, like, should we, like, fucking deep six this guy? Like, Trump was, like, kind of more or less okay with it, and more or less the CIA officials are like, whoa, maybe we should, like, walk off the ledge here, because that's pretty fucking crazy to do. So, I think that's merited. But that being said, the judges in the UK are like, did you really prove that? We can't say. Once again, wild to me. But whatever. I'm no judge. I don't wear the robes or the wool wigs or whatever they do in Parliament over there. So we'll see. I mean, this is a big update for sure, but it might just be a blip. A pit stop in the whole saga of this. Maybe the U.S. will put it all in writing and say, hey, we want him, give him to us. And then he does wind up getting some kind of time. And then maybe who fucking knows what happens, I mean, we're living in a dystopian future or whatever at that point. I don't want to speculate too far ahead. But yeah, it was big news, so I figured, hey, we'd cover it. Let's go ahead and talk about another big guy in life, and in this case, in hip-hop. Another update, if you will. ABC News, Diddy's Los Angeles, Miami homes raided by federal agents. Kicking the door, waving the 4-4. Yeah, hell of an anniversary there. What a serendipitous event. Sean Diddy Combs' Los Angeles and Miami homes were raided by federal agents on Monday, according to authorities. A Homeland Security investigation spokesperson said in a statement that the raid was executed as part of an ongoing investigation. Law enforcement sources said that while the search warrant was being executed in Los Angeles, Combs' sons were detained outside the home, and, as is customary in such circumstances, and released without charges. Now, Diddy, I believe, is in the wind. I haven't really heard of where his location is, but yeah, he was not on any of the scenes, any of the premises. Premises. I don't know how you say that. Let me know. Let's see here. Law enforcement sources said that while the search warrant was being executed in Los Angeles, I read that already. My bad. Earlier today, HSI New York executed law enforcement actions as part of an ongoing investigation with the assistance from HSI Los Angeles, HSI Miami, and our local law enforcement partners. The spokesperson said, "We will provide further information as it becomes available." Law enforcement sources familiar with the matter said that the searches are being carried out at the hip-hop producer's properties as part of a federal investigation led by the Southern District of New York into alleged human trafficking. No criminal charges have been filed in the investigation, but this is still very big. There's definitely been lawsuits. We definitely covered Cassie. That was the one that definitely kicked this shit off. In December, a complaint was filed against Combs by a Canadian woman identified only as Jane Doe, who says she was sex trafficked and gang raped in 2003 when she was 17 and in the 11th grade. The lawsuit claims Combs, former Bad Boy Entertainment president Harvey Pierre, and an unnamed third defendant, and claims Pierre and a third unnamed defendant approached the teen at a lounge in Detroit, Michigan, where Pierre allegedly told her he was best friends with Combs and proceeded to call him. Obviously, there's more to that. Really don't want to get into that. They talk about the Diddy thing, or the Cassie thing, in this article as well. We already covered that. Something I wanted to add from another article, NBC News. Producer Rodney Little Rod Jones, an amended complaint filed Monday, adds new allegations to a lawsuit filed last week by producer Rodney Lil Rod Jones, who alleges Combs sexually harassed and threatened him. Combs' lawyer has denied the allegations. That was in March 4th of 2024. This news definitely comes fast and furious. It kind of fell through the cracks. Also, I really don't like to get too keyed in or focused on like the pop stuff too bad or too hard. I have done at least one episode on the Patreon if you're interested about it, but I don't think it's that deep, so I wouldn't say it's like, oh, it's super worth it or anything, but it's there if you want, more expanded thoughts. Sometimes I do that. I know I talked about Jonathan Majors, that kind of shit. Sometimes I don't like to belabor the point on main, so you take it to the Patreon, yap a little harder. But let's see here, back to Diddy, back to Sean, Mr. Combs. Let's see, was there anything else I wanted to pull, actually? No, because they kind of finished with the Ventura shit. This shit is insane, though. I mean, it's definitely disappointing. It was weird, right? Like, I'm listening to this shit unfold, via BBC, and they play little excerpts and things, and I'm literally listening to songs from his Press Play album. And yes, I listened to P. Diddy. I know he was not that great as a rapper or whatever. He was definitely better behind the booth or doing little ad libs. But I saw the video with him and Nicole Scherzinger, whatever her name is. I know y'all know I'm terrible with names, but that video was okay, this is kind of hot. All right, and I'm corny, so that hit for me. Did a song with Christina Aguilera. I thought the shit was cool. I didn't know behind the scenes he was blowing up Kid Cudi's car and shit. Now we know. That being said, I mean, charges still haven't been filed yet, so I don't know if I have to put an allegedly anywhere, but there it is. It's there. But I mean, I kind of hope they do. I kind of there's no kind of about it. These motherfuckers need to get charged. Jesus shit. it's insane that like he's been doing this shit for so long. There's more people involved. It runs so deep. Like I tell people, like this is the kind of shit that is the quote unquote Illuminati. You know what I mean? It's not Beyonce throwing up weird symbols or whatever the fuck. Like it is straight up people taking advantage of the power that they have and doing Epstein like shit to other people, to people who are less advantaged. You know what I mean? Like at the end of the day, when it comes down to like Cassie, she was a fucking kid, you know? And next thing you know, you're drugging her up, you're doping her up, and you're just like throwing her around with other men. Like that's crazy. And I know I should have like a fucking warning here, but technically the next story I have is also upsetting, so trigger warnings. But like it's insane that it ran so deep, it's so dark for so long. You know what I mean? And once again, this is a guy who's like, you knew him as the guy who was running around the club passing out money. And like, yeah, sure, the shit with him and J-Lo is like pretty crazy, but like, you didn't think it was this shit. And then of course, now, stories come out, they come out, there's more and more. I know Meek Mill, he's getting roasted and toasted to shit, goddamn, another thing I didn't cover, but, at the end of the day, it really is sad. It really is upsetting and depressing. I feel like people are trying to intentionally or subconsciously add levity to the situation, but I mean, it's definitely gross and depraved. And I'll definitely be here to keep you posted. I really do think that there's going to be at some point some kind of trial, some kind of arrest, right? That's definitely got to be pending. But then again, who knows? I mean, shit. What was it, last year we covered all the Russell Brand shit? That's just been crickets. Like, I haven't heard any motion out of that, but who knows? Maybe, once again, these things are in motion, I hope, right? Who can say? But we have one more thing to cover, and like I said, it is not a nice story. I figured I heard it. I gotta tell you, I'm gonna preface this story. My coworker told me this story. I covered my mouth. I was like, oh, like, what? Like, it's upsetting, it's really sad, but here we are. We got to talk about it. So I'm going to take my break. I encourage you to take your break too. Find your zen place, or at least just get it ready for maybe after, because maybe you'll need it. I don't know. But then again, I feel like I'm talking to a lot of fellow millennials, Zoomers. Y'all been through this shit. We're all in the trenches. So I mean, this is a sad story, but I mean, there's a lot of sad things out there, right? I don't know. Whew. Anyway, let me do my thing. Okay, from USA Today. 8-year-old girl found dead in Houston hotel pool pipe. Autopsy. Investigation underway. Police in South Texas are investigating after a missing 8-year-old girl was found dead over the weekend in a pool pipe at a Houston area hotel. Whew. A Houston Police Department spokesperson confirmed the girl died Saturday at the Doubletree Hotel on the city's northwest side. The hotel is on the U.S. Highway 290, about 14 miles from downtown Houston. Let's see. According to a news release from police, homicide division detectives reported that before she died, the girl had been swimming with her family in a lazy river-style swimming pool at the hotel. Now, this is where I'm going to take a little bit of reference from like one of my coworkers who kind of explained this to me initially, but I guess the people who installed the pool, and this is, I guess a bit allegedly, this is all being investigated, but there was something wrong with the filtration pipe or whatever system they put in, and instead of like pulling in, pushing out, it was like doing way too much pulling in. And so this girl gets sucked in and winds up drowning, and then getting sucked into the actual pipe because there's like no block or anything for it. And that's supposed to be there, I believe. to keep a situation like this from happening, from someone getting literally completely swallowed up in the very worst case scenario. Not to mention the filtration or whatever, it's not supposed to flow like this. You know what I mean? So obviously I'm giving a poor description, but I was like, okay, well that's kind of helping me make sense of how this could happen, because that just sounds like something out of a fucking Final Destination movie, like you're just chilling, your parents are poolside or whatever. You're at this little hotel, a little DoubleTree, which I gotta say, I mean, to an international listener, DoubleTrees are not that fancy. They're just they're above a motel or anything like that, but they're like a mid-grade hotel, I would say. I'm a lower middle class poor person, right? So I feel like I could make that assessment, and that's like okay. Maybe it's like a Marriott. I haven't seen it. Maybe they do some mergers. Who knows? Maybe the DoubleTree I'm thinking is it's being classier. I don't know. But anyway, the girl who drowned identified as Aaliyah Jaiko. Just definitely wanted to make sure that her name's out there. But police said officials were awaiting an official autopsy. But yeah, I mean, she drowned and then wound up like in the pipe, and I was like, God damn, that's so rough. Yes, but I should actually read it since I found it. Yeah, according to the office, Aaliyah's preliminary cause of death was drowning and mechanical asphyxia, and her death appeared to be the result of an accident. So yeah, I mean, I can't imagine the family there. My heart goes out to them. Condolences and flowers, all that shit, man. Whew, that's grim. But yeah, that's it. That's I don't. Okay, no, I'm not gonna leave it like that. We have time. I'm gonna tell you a story about how I almost died at the beach water park. I think I don't know if the beach water park is still open. I need to do some research, or someone can hit me up and let me know. Can get into send me an email or something like that. But I went to the beach water park as a kid, right? And they have this thing called a wave pool, and you go out. It's this huge pool. It's so big, and you swim out there. And the further you get, the deeper it gets, obviously. But then there's waves that come, and like they come like on an interval scale or whatever, and it's like big waves. So I'm swimming out, and I'm being a little too brave for my britches because I can swim. I took my lessons. I don't need no floaties. I'm a big boy. So I'm going out. I'm swimming out. Whoo, whoo. And next thing you know, it's wave time. Ding, 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 ding. And I realize, oh shit, as well as I think I can fucking swim, I'm out of gas. I can't do it. And I think like I'm in trouble here. And I'm out by myself. Like I can't remember the exact scenario, if it was like a school function or if this was like with my parents. I think it was with my parents, or like a church thing or something, like so maybe me and like a couple other people from church. But I'm just out here alone, and I'm like scared as hell now because I'm out of gas. I'm gonna drown. So I'm kind of flailing. I'm kind of doing the freak out thing where you're just kind of freaked out and you're still in motion, but you're not quite treading water, and you're blah blah blah, blah. But luckily, I literally see, because you can rent out these things to be like a lazy ass, which, hey, is your priority. You paid the money. But you can just kind of float on the lazy river, and you can just kind of roll out as deep as you want and hang out on this little thing. And I luckily just clamber onto this guy, and luckily he doesn't, like, they don't react. They don't do anything, but they just kind of let me ride back to a safer place. And I just remember, I'm like, I will never, ever do that shit again. I will never go out that far. Like I said, I cannot remember if the beach water park still open. There was no one, I don't think, who ever died or anything like that. Another thing I never would do was I would never take the slide, because I was like, oh, I will be a person who gets injured on this somehow. They shouldn't allow you to do this. Because once again, you take that like same, I think it's like the same kind of boogie thing that you would kind of hit the wave thing with, and you would just take it on a goddamn slide, like a slalom or something. And I'm like, no way, no how. I'm not doing that. I'm not climbing up the fucking stairs and lugging up this luge for that shit. No goddamn way. And I never did. That being said, I don't... People think I hate the water. I don't hate the water. I'm just not really trying to swim anymore, because I have stories like that in my pocket, okay? All right? So now you know. There we go. That's the episode. That's really all I have. If you'd like to help out, support the effort, I do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/Isaiah News. You can support the effort financially that way. I do dub the a newsie. I do give you access to the old archive, little random episodes or so. They're not worth shit, but if you want to hear me rant and whatever, they're there. But yeah, it's like a tip jar, and like I said, I shout you out top of the month. Plug a project if you'd like. A little ad space if you want. Free ways to hit me up, isaiahnews1@gmail.com. And then you can follow me on any of the socials you're on, me or the podcast. Hopefully you're subscribed to the YouTube. Really helps out a lot. Feel free to hit that like button. Hit the comments. Leave something cool. Start a discourse. Hopefully be nice. Don't be an asshole. All the stars are great. If it's on another platform, you can follow and hit that button there. Sharing is caring. It can be fun. And hopefully I see you soon for some more good news. I love ya. Bye-bye. Mwah.